All right, quick reminder of some of the basics before you get started modeling a character. Probably you should sketch something out first. It's okay if the sketch is loose, and I'm going to be working with this sketch. First thing, you want to create a new project window and create a new project. And I already created a new project by clicking the new button, typing in the name of the project, and then pointing the project there by going under File, Set Project, and pointing to that folder. This way, all your image assets and anything else will be accessible by just opening up Maya and setting the scene. Maya, you can think about as much like a website. Most of its connections are relative links, so things have to be within that folder structure in order to easily switch another computer or after you're working in a new project for Maya to find the assets again. And that's why I use File, Set Project to set the project to the root of folder for all your assets. Create a new image plane, and I'm doing this just to import my image onto. Don't need so many divisions. Control A, one by one is fine. Right click, assign new material. I'm going to use Lambert. For the color, I'm going to connect it to a file. File, pick the file, and there it is. I made a PNG, so when I press the 6 key, we can see through it. This way we can see some of the modeling going on beyond the scene. If you want to do a pure turnaround, that's great, and that's definitely will work out. Here I'm just using some character sketches. Let me rotate this up. J key. Moving it up a little higher. Scaling. And then I'm going to put it on its own layer. This way it can be toggled to be in the view or not in the view. Just eyeballing the scale. Just scale it out. Going to the channel box, which is Control A, you could click here. Remember, 2 Control A's, attribute editor, channel box on lower part, layers. I'm creating a new layer. And that layer will just hold the image plane. Right click, add selected objects. This way I could toggle that image on and off as needed. I'm going to create a new layer, which will be the modeling. And stacking order doesn't matter in 3D applications. It's not like Photoshop. So this one, even though it's on top, it's not going to hide the image, because all that's based upon what's happening in the viewport. Models. Now go under Options, make new layers current layers, and option add new objects to current layers. This way, when I build an object, now that I have this selected, when I build the object, it knows to go on to that layer. And now we're ready to start modeling our character. We're going to be using box modeling, but instead of box modeling the whole character as one piece, we're going to make it out of a few multiple parts, then put them together if necessary. Why if necessary? When you look at the character is really made up of a shirt, overalls, shoes, and then neck and head and lower arms popping through. So do you need to model the whole character? Kind of. You need to get the volume right, so this way when you create the clothing around it, or maybe you want to get the holistic character done as one piece. This way you could sculpt out the clothing onto the character and paint out as well. Starting out with just creating the base structure of this character using geometry that fits will help with the overall understanding of your character and allow you to adjust it without having to worry about how to actually wire all this up in neat fashion. Right now, it's about figuring out the shape of your character first. Even if you're going to box model or sculpt it as one piece, it's good to go explore this sketch being converted into a 3D model. And at this stage, that just means start out with a box. You go to the front viewport, press the 6 key, and I'm going to look at the leg. And this leg was drawn straighter, so starting with that one. Scaling up this box a bit. And then I'm going to jump to the perspective viewport just to get that selected. I want the top, and I'm going to just extrude out the face. I'm also taking a look at the front viewport as I do this, trying to get the volume right. Might be a good idea to move it right into the center of your character. Since this character wasn't drawn in the turnaround T pose, you could approach this as a bit more loose than normal when you're modeling this. I'm not going to do the whole leg. I'm doing this in parts because later on I show you that all these parts can be combined into one. This will be the lower leg. I'm going to then select just the top again and extrude it outward. And as I roll over, I can see that my image plane's getting in the way. Let me change that to a referenced image plane. Clicking until you see the R show up. This way it's not going to be selected. If I press the 3 key, that's the general shape we're going for right now. Let me select the bottom. And I'll extrude that down. Get a little flatness to that surface. And I'll redistribute the vertices. Making sure I selected just that ring of vertices. And I'll pull it up. That's the lower leg. I'm going to duplicate this and went back to object level. I'm duplicating this for the upper leg. And then I'll look at it from the side point of view here. Let me reshape this. Vertex level. Flare it out a little bit. This is where his knees are. Just a loose sketch. I'm going to unreference the image plane, unduplicating it. And I'm going to rotate it. J key, like this. I know there's a lot of critters to stare at, but the goal is to be able to go like this back and forth. This way you get the profile view. To hide the rest of the character, select the vertices like this. Go to UV editor. Click on this checkerboard if the image is not showing. Going back and selecting these vertices, and in the UV part, moving the UVs this way. I'm going to have to rescale my image plane and repeat the process. Select the vertices on the left side, then go into the UV editor and move that over. This way we isolated the character. I could have done this first, and maybe I should have done this first. I was just freeform thinking out how I could create this character. And my conclusion will be, yeah, doing one of these X-plane things will work out. If I need to hide the rest of this, I'm on that secondary image plane. Right-click, vertex, selecting those vertices, going to the UV editor and moving over the UVs. UVs are the mapping of the image, while the actual physical space happens in the viewport. Scale this character smaller. Now you can see that maybe it is a good idea to do this step first. Positioning it so it could flip like this. It's ending up dark on one side. I'm just going to select the texture, going into the attribute editor, and for ambient color, let me just turn up ambient color. This way our character doesn't disappear. With that done, now I can sculpt like this, looking from both views. Better to have a character in a T pose with some additional pose like this. This is okay. I'll figure things out as I build. The rest is just taking these primitive shapes that we created using box modeling and kind of fitting within the sketch. But we're not being totally accurate to the sketch, just there to influence what we're doing, because you don't want your leg to go like this. You want your character to be in a neutral pose. So press the 1 key, just making sure things are symmetrical, and they're not. That's okay. I can fix that. In Maya, the quickest way to fix something like this, you can select all those vertices on top and use the scale tool and just scale it along y-axis. Straighten things out. Another option would have been to mirror this object. I might have to do because it's a little skewed. Let me just mirror it. Selecting the object. My goal is to get rid of this trapezoidal look right over here. Or is it a rhombus look? Right there. Going into Mesh Mirror and click the panel box. I want to apply mirror across the x-axis, clicking Apply, and then drag this object over here. Now if I end up with two trapezoids, like that, not what I wanted. I want to mirror direction, not the positive x, but the negative x-axis. And then drag the manipulator. That's all you have to do. Select your object, edit, delete by type history. Press the 3 key. Now we have symmetry again. Hooray. Taking account for the shoulders, I don't think I have enough material, and this is when you start to add multi-cuts. Let me make it symmetrical across the topology. I'll pick this right there. When you feel you can't fit your character's shape into a piece of geometry anymore, use multi-cut. Give yourself some more material to work with. I'm going to select the lower leg and just duplicate it, holding down the Shift key and dragging it up. So that's going to make a good upper arm and lower arm. Since I need to make this a T-pose eventually, I'm going to have to work with it not in a T-pose and then later on rotate all the parts. You need your T-pose for easy rigging, or at least a very relaxed T-pose. Going to move the pivot point for this. D key, moving the pivot a little higher up to where the shoulder is. D key. In case I have to rotate it again, rotating around what I need it to. Going to the Lambert transparency, increasing the transparency so now I can see through it. Or I could go into shading and select X-ray. Your choice. If you feel X-ray is too intense, and uncheck X-ray and use transparency just to give it a hint of transparency. And now you can see the shaded parts and the character. Selecting this side, edit duplicate special, use the panel, going to flip it. Before I duplicate this, let me freeze transformations, then flip across the x-axis, -1, and do the same for the lower arm. I'm just doing this as a demo. I'm about to add the hand in, and then I'll have to reflip it again. So I'm just taking a look at the character. Let me turn off the image plane. This is what we created so far. And take a moment to study the character, see if it's meeting your expectations of the volumes. Back to maybe it could be a little more heroic by using a soft selection actually up here. Going to modeling toolkit, turning on soft selection, holding down the B key, and increasing and decreasing soft selection. Let me turn off symmetry, and I'll scale it along one axis. Non-heroic, heroic. You decide how round or boxy your character should be. And it doesn't have to be all one shape. Here, as it goes from heroic with broad shoulders, has a bit of a tummy. Let's attach the hand. You don't have to attach the hand. You just float out there, because in the end, everything will be combined using booleans and then retopolizing the mesh, things like that. Maybe you have a need specifically to connect the hand. Because in this scenario, let's go to the 4 viewports. This scenario, it's all about just the base geometry, just living next to one another. Scaling it down, because the hand shouldn't be that big. Then going to rotate this and then remove the faces on one side. Of course, the hand is flipped. Let me duplicate that to flip it around to the other side. First, I'll freeze the selection, edit, duplicate special, open the panels box. This won't be a flip along the x-axis, this will be a flip along the z-axis. So -1 for the z. Click apply. You could save this other hand for the other side, but why bother? We'll just duplicate it again. To get it kind of in position, then remove the faces on the inside, connect it to the wrist, delete, delete, delete. And there's one more right there, delete. It looks like a glove right now. I'll do the same thing for the lower arm. Going to delete right here. Now the problem I have, there's more vertices on this side than there are on this side. You can apply a mesh smooth to this, to the lower arm to fix that. Let me recenter my pivot point. Just want a clean weld in between these parts. This is what we're actually dealing with on the base object level. Like, well, this to this, but then these vertices have no place to go. I'm going to just model in that by going to Modeling, Toolkit, Multi-Cut Tool, going down the Control key as I glide across the surface. I'm just trying to match side to side. There's 1, 2, 3 segments here, and there's only 2 here. Let me do that again. 1, 2, and 3. Now there's enough material to weld together. Select this object, shift-click on this object, Mesh Combine. Make sure our combined skinning is turned off. Apply. Then go down to the vertex level, select those 2 vertices, far corner. Go to Edit Mesh, select Merge, and then select the next 2 vertices, making sure you only selected those 2 that correspond to one another. Now I'm just pressing the G key over and over again to repeat Mesh Merge. I think I missed one right there. Shift click right there. Do that again. G key. G key. It's done. And then we'll be able to reshape the hand as it meets the lower arm. Get the corner. G key. Again, the corner makes it easier to select these 2. G key. And finally, G key. Pressing the 3 key. So that's what we ended up with. A little too cartoony. Now we could take the time to select all these vertices and just move them on down. Select those and reshape the arm a little bit. Have this hand selected. Click on Freeze, Edit Duplicate Special, Panels box. It could be flipping across the x-axis, so -1 for x. I previously flipped across the z-axis. Let me put 1 in there. Let's finish this off with creating the neck and also the head.